Welcome back to Mystery Minds, the channel where we dive into the darkest corners of true crime, uncovering stories that shock, intrigue, and leave us questioning the world around us. In today's case, we bring you a chilling and twisted tale, one of greed, deception, and audacious ambition. This is the story of holiday heists, crimes of greed and opportunity. A tale of manipulation, betrayal, and a risky game that spiraled out of control. This case will leave you wondering, how far would someone go for wealth they didn't earn? And what happens when greed overtakes reason? Stay with us as we unravel the jaw-dropping story of the holiday heists. Christmas Eve in the snowy town of Glenwood Heights was meant to be a night of joy and celebration. But for the Harper family, owners of the century-old Harper Jewelers, it turned into a nightmare. As the town's prized Christmas tree lit up the main square, masked thieves pulled off a robbery so daring, so calculated, that it left the entire community shaken. What seemed like a spur-of-the-moment crime would soon unravel into a web of betrayal, conspiracy, and greed spanning months of planning and involving people no one suspected. The Harper family had been running their jewelry store for over a century in Glenwood Heights, a picturesque town where the holidays were celebrated with unmatched enthusiasm. Harper Jewelers was more than a business, it was a legacy. Known for its exquisite, handcrafted pieces, it attracted customers from far and wide. That year, the store's Christmas collection was its most impressive yet. At the heart of the display was a $2 million ruby necklace, a rare and dazzling creation that had become the talk of the town. As the holidays approached, the store bustled with activity. Festive decorations adorned the windows, and customers lined up to admire the collection. The Harpers took pride in their work, unaware that their crowning achievement had also captured the attention of a very different audience. In the shadows, a group of criminals had been quietly watching, biding their time. To them, Harper Jewelers wasn't just a family business, it was the perfect target. Owen Marks had a knack for spotting opportunities. A former security consultant, he had turned to a life of crime after losing his job in a corporate scandal. For Owen, the Harper Jewelers heist was more than a payday. It was a chance to prove he was still the best at what he did. He had spent weeks planning every detail, assembling a team that could pull off the job with precision. Ava, his techspert, was the first to join. Her expertise in hacking alarm systems and disabling security cameras was unmatched. Next came Marcus, a getaway driver with a reputation for outrunning the law. Finally, there was Riley, a disgruntled former employee of Harper Jewelers. Riley's insider knowledge of the store's layout and routines made him invaluable. Together, they were a formidable team, and Owen was confident that nothing could go wrong. In the days leading up to Christmas, Owen's team worked in secret, conducting surveillance on the store and mapping out escape routes. Ava monitored the security systems, searching for vulnerabilities. Marcus memorized the streets of Glenwood Heights, while Riley provided detailed information about the store's operations. Every detail was accounted for, so they thought. The plan was simple in theory but required perfect timing. On Christmas Eve, while the town gathered for the annual parade and tree lighting ceremony, the team would strike. Ava would disable the security feed, giving Riley and Owen access to the store through a back entrance. Marcus would wait nearby in the getaway van, ready to drive them out of town as soon as the job was done. The heist was designed to be swift and quiet, leaving no trace of who was responsible. But despite their meticulous planning, cracks began to appear. Riley's nervousness grew with each passing day. Although his inside knowledge was crucial, he was no professional thief. His unease didn't go unnoticed by the others, but Owen dismissed it, trusting that Riley would hold it together when the time came. What none of them knew was that someone else had been watching, too. A security guard hired by the Harpers had recently noticed unusual activity near the store after hours. Although no alarms had been triggered, he reported his concerns to the family. The Harpers, determined to protect their valuable collection, decided to keep a closer eye on the store, even as they prepared for the festivities. The stage was set for a collision of plans, and the heist that Owen envisioned as flawless would soon spiral into chaos. In their pursuit of wealth and opportunity, the team underestimated not only the risks but also the unpredictability of human nature. As Christmas Eve approached, the air was thick with tension. What began as the perfect crime was about to unravel in ways none of them could have imagined. On the evening of Christmas Eve, Glenwood Heights was alive with holiday cheer. The annual parade filled the streets with music, laughter, and the glow of festive lights. Families gathered in the main square for the lighting of the towering Christmas tree, a beloved tradition that brought the entire town together. For Owen Marks and his team, the celebration wasn't a distraction, it was their cover. While the town focused on the festivities, they would execute their meticulously planned heist. At precisely 7:30 p.m., the team moved into position. Ava parked her small van a few blocks from the store and set up her equipment. With a few keystrokes, she disabled the store's alarm system and cut the security cameras, leaving no digital record of their entry. Riley, carrying the keys he'd kept from his time as an employee, unlocked the back door, his hands trembling as he pushed it open. Owen followed close behind, carrying an empty duffel bag that would soon be filled with millions in stolen jewelry. Inside the store, the plan unfolded like clockwork. Owen moved quickly, directing Riley to grab the most valuable pieces from the display cases while he targeted the safe in the back office. The ruby necklace, the centerpiece of the collection, was carefully placed into Riley's bag, its brilliance dimmed only by the darkness of the store. Ava monitored the operation from her van, her eyes fixed on her laptop screen, ensuring the alarms stayed offline. Marcus, stationed in the getaway van near an alley, kept the engine running, ready to flee at a moment's notice. Everything seemed to be going according to plan until Ava noticed something on her screen. A small glitch in the system, a brief flicker of data indicated that the alarm had been triggered. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to send a silent signal to the local police. Ava immediately radioed the others, her voice sharp with urgency. They had minutes, maybe seconds, before law enforcement arrived. Inside the store, Owen and Riley worked faster, shoving the last of the jewelry into their bags. As they moved toward the exit, they heard the faint sound of a car approaching the alley. Freezing in place, Owen peeked through the window and saw headlights illuminating the back entrance. It wasn't the police, it was the Harpers. Unbeknownst to the thieves, the family had returned to the store after the parade, worried about the collection's safety following the recent warnings from their security guard. The sight of the Harpers threw the entire plan into disarray. Riley panicked, dropping one of the bags with a loud thud. The Harpers, hearing the noise, entered through the front door and immediately noticed the shattered glass and empty cases. As the Harpers called out, Owen realized they had no choice but to hide. He gestured for Riley to follow him into the shadows near the back office. The Harpers moved cautiously through the store, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Just as they reached the office door, Owen emerged from his hiding spot, forcing the family into the back room. Riley followed, his face pale and his movements hesitant. What was supposed to be a quick in-and-out job had now turned into a hostage situation. Owen's carefully crafted plan was unraveling before his eyes, and the tension among the group was palpable. In the alley, Marcus grew anxious, glancing at his watch and muttering under his breath. Ava, still monitoring the situation from her van, tried to maintain control, but the silent alarm had already set things into motion. Within minutes, the faint sound of sirens filled the air, growing louder as they approached. The team was running out of time, and the Harpers' unexpected arrival had complicated everything. Owen knew they couldn't afford to leave witnesses, but the police were closing in fast. As the sirens drew nearer, the heist teetered on the edge of catastrophe. What started as a calculated robbery had now become a volatile situation, with too many moving parts and no clear way out. For Owen and his team, the consequences of their actions were about to catch up with them in ways they never anticipated. The hostage situation inside Harper Jewelers had turned the heist into a ticking time bomb. Owen Marks, once confident in his ability to control every variable, now faced a volatile reality. The Harpers sat in the back room, visibly shaken but unharmed, while Riley paced nervously, his hands trembling as he glanced toward the door. The faint wail of sirens in the distance sent ripples of panic through the team. Ava, still stationed in her van, worked frantically to monitor the police response, while Marcus gripped the steering wheel in the getaway vehicle, his mind racing with the possibilities of what could go wrong. As the pressure mounted, the cracks in the group's unity began to show. Riley's anxiety escalated with every passing moment, his guilt and fear bubbling to the surface. He had never been in a situation like this before and regretted agreeing to join the heist. What had initially seemed like an easy payday was now a nightmare he couldn't escape. Riley began questioning Owen's decisions, his voice rising in desperation as he suggested abandoning the plan and fleeing. Ava, watching from her laptop, discovered something that added to the chaos. The silent arm hadn't just alerted the local police, it had also triggered a response from a private security firm hired by the Harpers after recent suspicious activity. This unexpected twist threw the entire plan into further disarray. Ava relayed the information to Owen, her frustration mounting as the situation spiraled out of control. Owen tried to maintain control, but his frustration with Riley's increasing panic was evident. The tension between them grew unbearable, and it became clear that Riley was on the verge of cracking. For Owen, the realization came too late. Riley, overwhelmed by fear and distrust, made a decision that would change everything. While Owen and Ava scrambled to adjust their plan, Riley saw an opportunity to escape. Spotting the duffel bag containing the ruby necklace and several other high-value pieces, he quietly grabbed it and slipped out of the back room. The sound of the sirens drowned out his hurried footsteps as he fled through a side door, leaving the rest of the team and the Harpers behind. When Owen realized what had happened, his anger was immediate. The betrayal cut deep, not only because of the missing jewels but because Riley's departure put the entire team at greater risk. Owen's carefully laid plans were unraveling, and now his focus shifted from the heist to tracking down the man who had turned on them. Riley, clutching the bag tightly, ran through the snow-covered streets of Glenwood Heights, his breath visible in the freezing air. The weight of the jewels only added to his panic as he searched for a place to hide. The sirens were getting closer, and he knew it was only a matter of time before the police swarmed the area. Back at the store, Marcus grew increasingly anxious. He hadn't heard from Owen or Ava in several minutes, and the sound of approaching sirens made him question whether to stay or flee. His phone buzzed suddenly, and he glanced at the screen to see a call from his estranged brother, Liam Brooks. Liam, a rookie officer with the Glenwood Heights police, had no idea that Marcus was involved in the crime. He called to warn him about the robbery in progress, urging him to stay safe. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on Marcus, who quickly ended the call without revealing his location. Marcus's nerves got the better of him. Deciding that waiting any longer was too risky, he pulled out of the alley and sped away, leaving Owen and Ava to fend for themselves. In the chaos, Ava grabbed what she could from her setup and prepared to abandon her post. She had no way of knowing if Owen would make it out, but her priority was avoiding capture. Meanwhile, Riley ducked into an abandoned building on the outskirts of town, hoping to catch his breath and figure out his next move. What he didn't realize was that Owen had been following him. Fueled by anger and betrayal, Owen was determined to recover the stolen jewels and ensure Riley didn't get away with his actions. When the police finally entered the jewelry store, they found the Harpers unharmed but shaken. Of the thieves, only Marcus would be apprehended that night, caught after a high-speed chase on the outskirts of town. Riley's disappearance, the missing jewels, and Owen's whereabouts added layers of complexity to the case. What had started as a straightforward heist was now a tangled web of betrayal, desperation, and unanswered questions. For Owen and Riley, their fates were set on a collision course, but the outcome remained uncertain. Back in the abandoned building, Riley huddled in a dark corner, his chest heaving as he tried to calm himself. The stolen duffel bag, heavy with its contents, felt like a weight that could drag him down at any moment. His mind raced, torn between the desire to flee the town and the nagging fear that the police would be on his trail soon. The sirens were still faintly audible in the distance, a constant reminder of how close he was to being caught. He hadn't thought through the consequences of his actions, but now, with the jewels in hand, the magnitude of his decision hit him. He knew he couldn't go back. There was no way Owen or the others would trust him again, and the more he thought about it, the less he wanted to face the rest of the team anyway. His anxiety mounted as the hours passed, and every creak of the building sent his heart into overdrive. Despite his escape, the weight of guilt loomed over him. He had betrayed his partners. His only chance at survival now lay in the hands of luck and the ability to stay hidden long enough to leave the town unnoticed. Owen, however, wasn't about to give up on Riley without a fight. He had been tracking his former accomplice since the moment he noticed the duffel bag was missing. The snow-covered streets made it difficult to move unnoticed, but Owen was determined. His frustration and anger pushed him forward, ignoring the cold and the growing tension of being so close to the police presence. The town's narrow streets and alleys offered little cover, but Owen's experience as a security consultant made him adept at navigating tight spaces. He knew Riley would be trying to find somewhere to lay low, but Owen was convinced that the man would eventually make a mistake. The problem wasn't just finding him, it was the timing. The police were getting closer, and any wrong move could lead to disaster. In the distance, Marcus's panic had reached its peak. After the high-speed chase that nearly ended in a crash, he had realized just how dangerous the situation had become. The adrenaline was wearing off, and his thoughts turned to his family, particularly his younger brother, Liam, who had unknowingly warned him of the robbery earlier. The guilt was beginning to eat at him. Marcus knew he couldn't stay in the town any longer, but the thought of leaving without even attempting to recover the jewels weighed heavily on him. As he drove aimlessly through the darkened streets, his mind flashed to Riley, who was still out there somewhere with the stolen goods. The thought of Riley escaping with the loot while he faced the consequences was unbearable. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden realization he could never return to Glenwood Heights. It wasn't just the robbery that had gone wrong, it was the entire plan, the entire life he had built that was now unraveling. Back at the jewelry store, the police had begun to sift through the wreckage left behind by the thieves. They questioned the Harpers, who could offer little more than a description of the intruders. The store's security footage was of no help either, thanks to Ava's intervention. The silent alarm had been their only clue, but it had triggered so late that it offered no real leads. Meanwhile, Riley had left the building, still holding the bag. He knew he couldn't stay there forever, but his escape route wasn't clear. The road to safety was getting narrower by the minute. He moved through the town in a daze, unaware of the events unfolding around him. Owen, closing in on his target, watched as Riley slipped through an alley. His opportunity to corner him was slipping away, but Owen wasn't about to let him go. Every part of him was consumed with finding the man who had ruined everything. It was clear that their fates were now inextricably linked, but the question remained who would emerge victorious, and who would pay the ultimate price for their greed. The night was far from over, but with each passing hour, the walls were closing in. The police, the stolen jewels, and the broken trust between the thieves created an unstoppable force. As the team's once perfect plan crumbled, only one thing was certain: someone wouldn't make it out alive. The dawn of Christmas morning arrived with an eerie stillness, casting long shadows across the snow-covered streets of Glenwood Heights. The once celebratory atmosphere had been replaced by an overwhelming sense of unease. The heist had not only failed, but it had also left a trail of destruction that would change the town forever. With the police tightening their grip, Owen Marks found himself standing at the center of a crumbling operation. The ruby necklace was still missing, and Riley's disappearance had escalated the situation from a simple robbery to a full-blown manhunt. Owen had spent hours combing through the streets, his mind racing as he pieced together the puzzle of where Riley might be hiding. Each passing minute increased the pressure, and he knew the longer he waited, the greater the chances were that the police would catch up to him. He needed to find Riley, and he needed to do it fast. The stolen jewels weren't just his ticket to freedom, they were now his only bargaining chip. In the meantime, Marcus's decision to abandon the team had left him with nothing but regret. The high-speed chase had shaken him to his core, and now, with the town's only escape routes blocked, he found himself stuck in a situation with no way out. His earlier thoughts of escaping to start a new life seemed like an impossible dream. He couldn't outrun his past, and the weight of his betrayal hung heavy on his conscience. Marcus knew that it wouldn't be long before the police would track him down, and the consequences would be dire. Riley, however, was still one step ahead. Despite his earlier panic, he had found a new resolve. The stolen necklace, along with the other pieces of jewelry, felt like his ticket to a new life, a life that had been eluding him for years. But as the minutes turned into hours, his isolation began to eat away at him. He had no plan, no clear path forward. Hiding out in an old cabin on the outskirts of town was only a temporary solution. Riley knew he couldn't stay there forever. The town was closing in on him, and he had no allies left to turn to. Meanwhile, Owen had made a chilling realization. He was being watched. The police had picked up his trail, and the fact that he had not yet been apprehended was a testament to his resourcefulness. He had used his knowledge of the town's hidden alleys and back roads to stay one step ahead, but the clock was ticking. Every corner he turned felt like it brought him closer to capture. Yet, the thought of Riley holding the jewels and slipping away was something Owen could not bear. Hours passed with no word from Ava, and Owen began to fear the worst. His last hope was Marcus, but Marcus had gone silent. The growing uncertainty gnawed at him as he wondered whether Marcus had fled or if he, too, was being hunted. But even worse was the possibility that Riley, too, was out of reach. If Riley managed to sell the jewels or disappear, it would all be for nothing. With the police closing in on all sides, Owen made one final decision. He had to confront Riley. He had no choice but to risk it all in an attempt to recover the jewels and salvage the plan. Every move would be fraught with danger, but Owen knew this was his only chance. If he didn't act now, Riley would slip away, and he would be left to face the fallout alone. As Owen made his way toward the cabin where he suspected Riley was hiding, the weight of his actions began to settle on him. He had crossed lines he could never undo. His ambition had blinded him to the consequences of his choices. Now he faced the real possibility of losing everything: the jewels, his freedom, and perhaps even his life. In the cabin, Riley was beginning to crack. His nerves were frayed, and the isolation had taken its toll. The thought of Owen closing in on him filled him with dread. Riley had never planned for things to go this way, but now he had no choice but to face the music. He could try to run, but Owen was relentless. The necklace, once a symbol of his escape, now seemed like a cursed burden. As Owen approached the cabin, his heart raced. He knew this was it, the moment that would decide everything. His mind was consumed with thoughts of how this final confrontation would unfold. Would he be able to recover the stolen jewels and escape, or would he be caught in the crossfire of his own mistakes? There was no turning back now. When Owen entered the cabin, he found Riley sitting in the corner, staring blankly at the stolen duffel bag. The jewelry glimmered faintly in the low light, a stark reminder of everything they had lost. Neither man moved at first. In that moment, both realized the truth: they had both been played by their own greed. What was once a perfect plan had become a tragic disaster. The jewels were no longer worth the cost. But in the cold, silent standoff, the question remained: who would walk out of the cabin, and who would be left behind to face the consequences? Thank you for joining us on Mystery Minds, where we uncover the darkest truths behind the most shocking crimes. What did you think of this case? Were the Harpers victims of circumstance or masterminds of deception? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more gripping stories. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.